So if you're paying attention to any sort of news right here in San Diego, or if you're a homeowner in San Diego, or you're just paying attention to news in general, you're going to be seeing a lot of bad news recently coming out over the past few months. And I'm going to say it's going to continue into the new year about what's happening in the housing market. But in this video, we're going to get into some ways to kind of dive in a little bit, kind of, even though the headline might be bad, might say prices are dropping and this is dropping. What does it mean for you? So we're going to get into some articles of what we're seeing out there and probably the same ones that you are seeing to kind of give you some insight into what to expect coming into the new year and really give you a good way to approach these articles. So it's not all bad news. There are bad news. There are bad things happening right now in the real estate market. Not necessarily bad things, but compared to how they have been over the past, where it was a crazy seller's market over the past 2 years. But we will probably start seeing a little bit more of those fear headlines coming out. So let's jump into it right now. As always, thanks for tuning in. And just want to give you a heads up, we are real estate agents right here in North County, San Diego. So if you guys need some insight and you're walking through these articles and you need to know what's going on, hit us up, call, text, email. We got your back. We're moving here to North County, San Diego. So we ready to jump in, Lauren?
We're ready. Let's go, Chris.
Let's do it. So a lot of this stuff, like I said, is you will see the headlines are bad.
I don't think they're bad. I think they just are. The real estate market's always in flux to some degree. Things are always changing. And so it's not bad if you're a buyer necessarily. Mortgage rates aren't great. That's for sure if you're a buyer. Scary is a good word. They're trying to get people to click on these things that make them sound scary.
Definitely. This one was back from October, further to fall from fortune. Just kind of give you some insight. Like, obviously, a lot of this stuff too is national news. So break it down to the local level. San Diego is always, if you could find stuff on San Diego specific, and specifically even where you're living, because neighborhoods within San Diego are much different. Even zip codes within Carlsbad and neighborhoods within Carlsbad, as you're searching around, there are different prices, different things happening, different levels of what's happening in the market. But, as San Diego as a whole is from, like I said, October, you're going to see prices are down from their peak. So this is from peaked probably in March, April-ish of this year when interest rates were super low. Just even if you are Googling top real estate markets that are down, this is from February to August, down 15.8%. So the frenzy that was happening in the market is definitely not there. So anything coming off those insane peaks is going to be, or going to read as a little bit scary.
Part of this too is the numbers are great to know.
Yeah.
But in general, if you're a home buyer, none of this really means anything if you are qualified and you could find a home that you like, that fits your budget. There's more to choose from now. So that's a big plus. And so if those couple things meet and it's the right time for you, then you're never going to time this thing right. So part of what we're reading is these different articles to supposedly help people, I guess, time the market. And really, there's no time in the market. Very few people end up successfully doing that, especially for your own home. For real estate investors, we would have a different conversation.
Correct. So this one, San Diego among housing markets expected to cool the most in 2023, report says. So Redfin pulls a bunch of data throughout the entire country. And you could actually hop on here, go to Redfin Data Center and look at some of this stuff yourself. You compare year on year. I would always recommend taking out 2020 because it was a pretty funky year. There was a big drop, there was a big up, or you can keep it in and kind of see actually what really happened. So they're saying West Coast markets compared to a lot of other markets are going to see a bigger downturn. They are going to see San Diego to cool the most. San Diego was number 9 as a list of most expected to cool. But what were they actually saying in this report? They're going to say a few things. This actually report was pretty good. I think they went over 12 different points that broke down what they're expecting. And with anything, with all these predictions, who knows? I know Zillow's predicted prices, Redfin's predicted prices, banks and everything, what's going to happen. It's really important what's happening right now because nobody really knows what's going to happen. We keep eye on it every single day. But what really happens in the market is usually different than what is predicted. So one of the big headlines, home sales will be the lowest since 2011. A lot of people might read that and say, I think prices to those 2011 levels. But what they're saying is transactions are down. A lot of what's happened over the past few months as interest rates have gone up is the number of transactions have gone down. But that also has to take into account seasonality, which happens in the latter part of the year going into, November, December, January, February, and then we see it kind of ramp up, which we hadn't seen in the past. So as they're comparing numbers year over year, they're going to be quite drastic because comparing 2021 to 2022, that's when the prices were going up crazy. That's when we had those frenzies. That's when we had, a ton of offers on every property. It is a little bit different than right now. Hottest markets are no longer cool. I think it's still pretty cool. I'm all right with that. They're also saying rents will fall. Go ahead.
We're still seeing rents rise, but it's such an interesting thing. This particular one, they do pull out more data, so it's a little bit more helpful, but it also points out the real flaw in all of this. There are so many pieces of information and so many inputs that go into where the market's going to go. And most of them people don't know at this point. It's all speculation, but it's good to kind of have an idea of what people are saying and then judge that based on what you're seeing. For instance, if I'm selling a home and I've been thinking about selling for the past year or so, right now it's still a good time to sell your home, because there's still not a lot of inventory. Part of these numbers too, when we look at them over a 10-year period, inventory levels for the majority of that time were significantly higher than they are now. So the numbers of sales compared to the number of homes available, there's still a lot of homes selling if we're looking at that number. If we're just looking at the aggregate number, to me, part of the reason that sales are slower even right now when it is a normal interest rates up in time of the year where it slows, is there's still not that many great homes for people to buy. When you go look in certain marketplaces, I mean, there's two buyers we're working with, right? Two different buyers specifically I'm working with. One of them, there's just nothing in what they're looking for. And it's a pretty wide range, single story, ocean view, $3 to $4 million, certain square footage, from Cardiff up to Cardiff and Encinitas. There just aren't many. So some of it's that. To me, the numbers, all of this information's great, but you can get kind of we're into it because we're kind of geek out on some of the information to try to figure out where we think things are going. If you're diving into it yourself, get some feedback from whoever your agent is. If you don't have one, we'd like to apply for the job. But if you have an agent, tell them what you're reading and see what their feedback is based on what you're reading and bring it into context for your specific, especially if you're looking to do something in a specific area for that specific area. There's so much going on right now. I've been doing this a long time. This has been one of the most interesting years just from the standpoint of this. Hurry up and buy. Don't buy a house now. You're going to miss out if you don't buy. And now, hey, wait for prices to crash. There's those two different things. Seems like we go from black to white really quickly. Everything's great to everything's horrible quickly. It really isn't. Overall, the number of sales are going to be moderated. Some of that's inventory levels. A lot of that's mortgage rates. There's no doubt about that. The affordability in San Diego has gone from, we were in the 40s as early as last year, to 28 is our affordability index rating right now, which is pretty darn low.
One other thing that is affecting what you mentioned is the interest rates. And this article is saying interest rates are freezing the San Diego market. And it does supply and demand, the number of people selling their house versus the number of people who are looking for houses. So sellers and buyers, the number of sellers is down, but also the number of buyers is down significantly. So like I mentioned, as we had a frenzy kind of over the past 6 to 12 months, that has simmered down quite a bit. And a lot of it is because that affordability has gone quite a bit higher, or quite a bit lower rather, compared to what it was. Even though prices were rising prior, right now, prices are kind of moderating a little bit, but interest rates are at least double, if not more. But it's also even important to keep in touch with that, because a lot of articles you will see are going to say they're lagging a little bit, where they're taking their stuff and they're a few months behind, or, it's kind of indicators that were in the past. Whereas what's really happening right now is a totally different. So buyers looking right now, if they were looking a few months ago, they're looking at over 6.5% interest rates. Whereas like today we're sitting at, or this might be yesterday, sitting at 6.13. So it's been fluctuating quite a bit. And that almost 0.5% right there is a lot in affordability, especially in our prices here. So that has a lot to do with what we might see is kind of keep an eye on this. This is a good website, Mortgage News Daily, where you can keep an eye on that. If you want to see what's actually happening on the mortgage rates, and every lender is different. They're just taking, an average. Depends on if the buyer is getting a jumbo loan or traditional or, all kinds of different stuff. So they're just taking a 30-year fixed mortgage rate on this one.
Mortgage, if you are buying, let me give one plug for that. The Mortgage News Daily has an app. And if you are looking to buy a house, just plug it into your phone and you can kind of watch what's going on. Because really the past month, a little over a month, we were around 7.5 for a 30-year fixed. And now it's about 6.13. That's a big drop. And actually mortgages from probably August, maybe even July, the number of mortgages were down, for so many months in a row. And now there's probably some people that bought a house that paid 7.25. Maybe they can refi now at 6, get a point lower. It makes sense to refi. So maybe they'll see some refis back. The mortgage market's had its toughest year that I've seen ever.
And it's not all bad news. This is from local realtors. This is from a local realtor association. San Diego home values stable in November despite falling sales volume. Once again, that sales volume, meaning the number of homes sold, is less, but prices have stabilized a little bit from October to November. You can see the median price from October to November increased by a little tiny bit, but it's better than what we had seen the month-to-month prior. And it's still up, like I said, 3.4% higher than a year ago. So we're still up year over year. We'll see if that changes in the new year, if we do kind of cross under our median price that we had over the past few years. But it's really important to kind of dive into these because you could take a number and skew it however you like. And it's really important to dive in and know what all these numbers mean, what actually is going on. And like I said, that's what we do every single day here, is kind of keep an eye on what's happening in the market. When we're working with buyers and sellers, there are still properties being sold every single day. So if you are thinking of selling in the new year and you want to get some insight into what's actually happening, definitely hit us up, call, text, email. We got your back. We're moving in and around North County, San Diego.